There is a shocking amount of information we have on Sukuna's past and the Heian Era that I guarantee that you have never heard of. The fact that Sukuna may have been a prince who his father was to a general that actually defeated him in the Heian Era, Takefurukuma no Mikoto, and as well as his twin brother, the binding vows he made with Kenjaku, his time as a human man, there is just so much to discuss. So hey, be sure to leave a like, it does help out. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed for a ton of JJK content just like this, spoiler videos, crazy theories, power scaling, live streams, and a whole bunch of other JJK content. So if you love JJK content, you will not regret subscribing. Of course, thank you to East Kaisen and that guy Trait. Thank you guys very much. Alright, now there's just a whole bunch of things to talk about, but first I'll start off with some really interesting stuff and information I'm very certain that you have never even heard of about Sukuna from GEGE. So during an interview for the 38th New Jump Manga Award, a question is actually asked to GEGE. The question is that Uraume Sukuna is a demon from the Nihon Shoki Chronicles of Japan, and the actual Shibuya's geography is used in the manga during the Shibuya incident. To what extent do you use the materials to draw? The answer that GEGE gave is that I only had the information I read in the Nihon Shoki and also Professor Munokata's series about Sukuna. I thought that Sukuna was an old man who was nicknamed Sukuna, so I thought it'd be okay, but recently my lack of knowledge became apparent, so I'll study more about Sukuna. And it is really interesting to think that actually while JJK was first going on, actually for a while deep into JJK, GEGE didn't actually have the clearest picture of Sukuna's backstory. I'm sure he definitely had something ready, but there are probably a lot of finer details that if we ever see a Sukuna backstory, he's probably only made recently. So it really is great to see that GEGE really does care. He's doing the studying and he really will deliver if we ever get a Sukuna flashback, which I really hope we do. Now the name Uraume Sukuna is not an original name that came from Jujutsu Kaisen, as we all know. It is the name of a god from Nihon Shoki. And now here's some actual information from the Nihon Shoki. In the year 65, there was a man in Hida province. And just for those of you who are curious and are aware of Japan's geography, that is now the Gufu prefecture, so it's actually that area. He was named Sukuna. The man had a single head and torso, two faces, each facing the opposite side. So this is actually true of the Sukuna that we saw, though one of the faces is pretty scarred and definitely isn't normal, but I will get into that with a lot of theories later on. The top of his head had no nape. He had limbs and knees, but no area behind the knees and heels. He was powerful and agile, and he wore swords on both sides. So this is the Vajra and the Trishul, the two weapons that we actually see Sukuna have in the cover page, and used bow and arrow with 4 hands. Now this is probably referring to the flame arrow that we actually saw him use against Jogo, but it could be a physical weapon as well that we just haven't seen before. And some extra information for you, it is actually said that he came at the time of the reign of Emperor Nintoku. However, it's a bit conflicting since that guy was actually around during the 4th century. What was also said about Sukuna is that he terrorized village after village in ancient Hida, plundering and leaving chaos in his wake. And GEGE actually stated that Sukuna will kill anybody in an instant and that he has no morals, taking pleasure out of making things tough for Yuji. So yeah, he really is just pure evil incarnate. Now here's an interesting thing. He was actually an enemy of the Imperial House of Japan, and this is actually the royal family of Japan, and is also known as the House of Yamato. Now keep in mind, this family was around from 660 BC all the way to 539 AD. So over 1,000 years. So well over 1,000 years, this family was in charge. While Sukuna was terrorizing village after village in the Hida province, a brave military commander dispatched the imperial court named Takefurukuma no Mikoto, and he actually put an end to this monster's tyranny, expelling him from Hida. Now here's the interesting thing, the Nihon Shoki isn't actually saying that he was killed, just that he was defeated and thus expelled. However, actually at this point, while he was ruling over this place, he did have 4 arms and 2 heads. Now it's possible that GEGE is going to adjust some things, since there's no way that at least when Sukuna had his true form that he would have lost. Because remember, it was said that Sukuna was the strongest in his era, and it was said that he was never able to be bested. So it is possible that this was way before Sukuna entered his prime, and it really could be possible that he just got jumped. And hey, maybe Takefurukuma no Mikoto actually didn't just fight him one-on-one and he jumped him with a bunch of boys, right? He just got a squad. It was Jump Kaisen all the way back in the Heian Era. There was like 50, 20 elite soldiers and they just jumped him. Now granted, Sukuna did decimate 2 insanely elite Fujiwara squads, the 5 Void Generals and the Sun and Moon squad led by Udo. So even if you do get a bunch of elite guys, I mean, maybe Takefurukuma, maybe he really just was him and he was very powerful, and with the help of some elite soldiers and some complex plan, they managed to drive Sukuna out of Hida. But still, it just wouldn't sit well with me if they defeated a true form Sukuna or a prime Sukuna. So maybe the version of Sukuna that they defeated was the Sukuna that was a sorcerer. So this is before he transcended into the realm of evolved human, so that he's no longer human or curse, right? He's sort of a mixture of both. But still, considering the fact that this is what GEGE originally based Sukuna off of, and it was all Sukuna was based off of for a very long time, I really do think that the Imperial Court, the House of Yamato, Takefurukuma no Mikoto, I do think that they are actually going to be important in a Sukuna flashback if we ever see one. Another interesting fact was that Sukuna was actually worshipped as a minor deity, and some statues depicting his distinctly two-faced head can still be found today in the Gifu temples and shrines. Really interesting and cool fact. That's a real thing right now. And now here's a very funny fact. Remember, Sukuna was actually the one who very likely defeated the Yamato no Orochi, since he was talking about it in great detail. And so much detail, as a matter of fact, that it really just seems like he was the one who fought it. And let's be real, if Sukuna was fighting this mythological beast and he's still alive, he must have just killed it, because there's no way, if those two are fighting, one of them is coming out alive. And this also means that maybe Sukuna's actually fought the nine-tailed fox, because that is actually a real cursed spirit that did exist, as it does show up in a panel when I believe it's Gojo who's actually talking about cursed spirits and how they're formed. And there's actually some really interesting theories on who Sukuna could be based on actual mythical figures and even real figures in Japan's history. And for these next two theories, shout out the actual JJK wiki for pointing them out. The first theory states that Ryoma Sukuna is actually Yamato Takeru no Mikoto and his twin brother. Now this is very interesting, since remember, Ryoma Sukuna is an enemy of the Imperial court of Japan. He is an enemy of the Yamato family, so it'd be very interesting if he actually came from that family. And another theory, and I actually like this one more, says that maybe Sukuna actually refers to Emperor Chuai's two sons, Kagosaka no Miko and Oshikumu no Miko. Now, this is interesting because both pairs of brothers are deeply related to Mino and especially Hida provinces. And of course, the main area that Sukuna ruled over, where he was worshipped, was the Hida province. And now here's the interesting part. I was actually researching Emperor Chuai, sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, and the Nihon Shoki, which again is the book that GEGE got Sukuna from and is basing a lot of his information from. It is actually said that a vengeful cursed spirit, Kami, is actually the one that indirectly killed Chuai. Now here's the odd thing, it's a vengeful cursed spirit called Kami, just God. It's possible that GEGE may add his own spin on this, and again, this vengeful cursed spirit, which is just called God, and remember Sukuna was known as a god, may have killed the emperor, his own father, and that's actually how Sukuna became an enemy of the house of Yamato, his own family. Yes, Sukuna really may have been royalty. Now, as for some classic theories on Sukuna, because remember, there is actually some things that we know just straight up from JJK itself. It's that one, he is actually just known in the Heian Era as the Disgraced One. And I actually have a theory on why he's known as the Disgraced One. And I actually said this theory in Jalomouth's Jujutsu Kaisen Iceberg theory, the second one that he did. If you aren't aware, I was actually in that video, so be sure to check it out. He did a fantastic job with it. Basically, my theory goes is that he's disgraced because obviously he committed an act that would just be insanely heinous. And what do we know about Sukuna that's the same throughout all versions of Sukuna? So the yokai version myths, or the one from manga and games and other such things, especially the one from the Nihon Shoki, which GEGE based him off of, is that Sukuna is always a twin, usually a conjoined twin. And if you aren't aware, a conjoined twin is basically two twins in the body of one. So it's just one body with two heads, and they're both different people. And there's even a very famous pair of sisters right now on TikTok and such that are conjoined twins. The reason Sukuna may be disgraced is 1, he either ate his brother in the womb, 2, he may have just killed his brother in the womb, and that's why that part of his face is scarred, because you know, he killed his brother. Or it's possible that GEGE may go down the route of not a conjoined twin, but just a regular twin, right? So just while Sukuna was alive, he just had a twin brother. And it's possible that via killing this brother is what actually made him disgraced or fallen, because some translations also say the fallen one. And this would actually make a lot of sense, considering that the angel that actually said this was part of a religion, and this is something that's very taboo, and Sukuna may have been a part of this too, but obviously in the quest for power and just hunger for destruction, that's what he may have done, just ended his own brother. And it's possible that that's actually what made Sukuna very powerful. As you saw, twins are treated as one, so if one is weak or if one is not training, that can actually hold back the other twin. This is what happened when Mai died and Maki got all of her powers, though granted that was a very special case where Mai was blocking Maki's heavenly restriction. But really it could have been the same case with Sukuna, and it's possible that not only did he kill his twin to just awaken his true power, but it's possible that he ate his twin. Yes, something very gruesome, because we know Sukuna's favorite pastime and favorite pleasure, said by GEGE, is to eat people. Interestingly enough, GEGE actually did say in a separate interview that not only is his favorite pleasure to eat, but that Sukuna will actually eat someone very important in the series. Now some people theorize that this has already been done and it was Hana. Granted, he didn't really eat Hana, he just bit her arm off and didn't eat the arm. That's why I don't think it was Hana, and I think really it could be Gojo, but hey, that's a different video for another day. To get back on track on the Sukuna brother theory, it's possible that he actually gained his brother's ability, and maybe his brother's ability was actually shrined, and by consuming his twin, because remember, twins are treated as one, he gained that ability as well. Or maybe Cleaver Mantle was the ability that he gained from his brother. It could have been one or the other. The final parts of Sukuna's life that we know is that he was defeated, granted it was by a group of sorcerers, and sealed. At least that's what's taught in history. That's possible that actually the one who sealed him was Take Furukuma no Mikoto, and he really was just the one to bring an end to Sukuna, because it's possible that he just jumped in with his boys in the Imperial court and some elite super strong sorcerers. However, remember that he did make a binding vow with Kenjaku to actually transcend past life. So it's possible that History really just got it wrong, and he himself actually just chose to be sealed via Kenjaku. Or maybe Kenjaku is actually part of the group that defeated Sukuna, and Kenjaku said to everyone else, oh, I can seal him, you know, I have a technique for it. But behind the scenes, he already made a deal with Sukuna saying, oh, you know, I'll seal you and bring you back to this time, and so you can reign and do whatever you want, eat all the women and children and just cause mayhem. And that could have been the original binding vow that he made to Sukuna, and there's probably another tied to it, saying you have to listen to me or you have to help me until I achieve this goal, which could have been the merger. The finer details are going to be near impossible to actually determine, and there's just thousands of different things that it could be, but what we know for a fact is that Kenjaku turned him into a cursed object, so Kenjaku may have been part of that original group. And there's still a lot of things that should be in the flashbacks, such as Yuji, and who is Yuji from, right? Because it's possible that Yuji is actually a reincarnation, not a normal incarnation, of someone from the Heian Era, since it seems like Sukuna and Uraume actually recognize him. And no, it's not a reference to that statue. That is actually just an incorrect translation from Viz. They are referring to an actual person, to someone, and they clearly knew this person. So what is the connection there? You know, is that actually Sukuna's twin? Is that why Yuji has such a deep connection to him? I really doubt that. If the connection was that deep, that they're actually twin brothers, I do think it would have been brought up by now, but hey, it's still possible, it's on the table. And of course there's still Uraume. You know, how did Uraume come to actually worship Sukuna, to become such a loyal servant? What was the backstory with that? Were they forced to do so by their parents, or maybe by the shrine they were part of, since Uraume does have shrine clothes? Maybe Sukuna actually picked up Uraume as a kid and saw that he has potential, and maybe even raised him, though I really doubt that. That would be very funny to see, and that would actually explain Uraume's loyalty. But the shrine one also makes sense, since Uraume probably views him as a god, and remember there were people in the Hida province who were worshipping Sukuna like a god, so that would make complete sense. But what are your thoughts on Sukuna's past? Do you think anything I said could be true, or do you have theories of your own? Let me know in the comments, and of course be sure to leave a like, it does help out. So thank you if you do, and of course subscribe for a ton more JJK content just like this. Spoiler videos based on chapters, crazy theories, power scaling, live streams, and just a whole bunch of stuff. So if you love JJK, you will not regret it. And of course thank you to all the channel members as well. Thank you guys very much, and that's all. Take care.